You almost.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's Onslow Forum. My name is Cindy Edwards. I'm an Onslow resident, a business owner, and the chair of the Jacksonville Onslow Chamber Governmental Affairs Committee. On behalf of the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee, I want to thank you for joining us today. The Governmental Affairs Committee works with government agencies on issues that affect our local business community. We monitor legislative issues that impact local business and promote partnerships between businesses, government, military, and education. We facilitate these forums to create awareness on topics that are important to our entire community. I'd like to extend special thanks to our corporate sponsor, Duke Energy Progress, our media sponsor, the Daily News, the City of Jacksonville for the use of these facilities, and the City of Jacksonville Media Services for today's recording and broadcasting of this very important forum. Now I'd like to introduce to you Jason Harris, attorney at law with Welch & Harris. Jason is a Chamber Board member, and he will provide some information on the Office of Clerk of County Court. Thank you, Jason.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Harris. I'm an attorney practicing with Welch & Harris here in Jacksonville, and I'm pleased to tell you a little bit about the position of Clerk of Court. It's an exciting position for me, and one I'll be monitoring closely as we get closer to the election because I have a lot of interaction with the clerk's office on a day-to-day basis, as do the other attorneys at my office. The clerk position in Onslow County is a 4-year term. It's paid by the state, and the salary is scaled in accordance with the population of the county. The office is, of course, no surprise, located downtown here at the courthouse. There are a variety of roles that the clerk of court serves the community. The first role is the judicial role. Second is administrative. Third is the comptroller role. And then, of course, there's the catch-all managerial and supervisory role. And I'll just tell you very briefly a little bit about each of those roles. In the judicial role, many folks know the clerk of court to be the individual or series of individuals who probate wills, they handle decedents, estates, and trusts. They declare someone, they can declare someone incompetent and name a guardian to take care of that person. They assist with name changes, foreclosure proceedings, partitions of land, adoptions, and other various and sundry roles to assist the judiciary. The next sort of category of roles I mentioned was the administrative role. The clerks help to draw panels of jurors, they administer oaths, and they serve as the custodians of evidence in cases. Clerks are also record keepers. They maintain the original criminal, civil, juvenile, and special proceeding files. This is where you can go to start a case, as you will visit with an assistant clerk of court to do that. And that's any kind of case, from a small claim to a large-scale medical malpractice class action. It's the first window you'll visit at the courthouse. They assist in maintaining the judgment docket, which is where you can find judgments of record against someone, hopefully not you. You can also find records, important records. As I mentioned, they maintain all of the criminal and civil records, and other agencies in our state rely upon those records, and so they're very important to maintain them and maintain them accurately. Other agencies you would be familiar of that rely on those records are the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, vital statistics, think birth and death type records, and the sheriff's office. Preview for our next forum, right? They also serve in a comptroller fashion in that they handle taking the money for court costs, fines, and filing fees at the courthouse. And finally, back to the managerial and supervisory role, they hire and maintain a significant staff here in Onslow County. They work closely with the magistrates. They appoint public administrators and public guardians to assist. I even heard one assistant, now retired clerk of court, tell me that when a window doesn't open it, she needs to figure out who's going to go help them do it. So there's certainly a great breadth of tasks that the clerk of court is responsible for handling. Plus, I just generally like, as a practicing attorney, to think of the elected clerk of court as one of the people that helps keep me in line on a daily basis. I've found them to be very helpful and a tremendous resource for attorneys and citizens in the community, and they're a real tool for all of us. So now that I've talked about all of these different roles, and these folks are still here, apparently remaining interested in having it, I'll introduce to you Elliot Potter. Many of you know Mr. Potter as the executive director and publisher of the Daily News here in Jacksonville. He's also a past chairman of the Onslow County Chamber of Commerce. So, Elliot Potter.
Thanks, Jason. And I am glad, after hearing all those list of responsibilities, that you decided to stick around, and I guess we can go ahead with the program. Candidates, we really do want to thank you for participating in this forum for the Republican candidates for the Onslow County Clerk of Court. These forums, as you know, if you've been around Onslow County for a while, have become something of a rite of passage during the political season. And we thank both the candidates who have been very steadfastly involved in this, as well as the audience for making them successful. What we want to do is we want to make this an informative program. We want to make it enjoyable for everybody. But to do that, I think we got to have a few good rules that we can stick by, and that way we can play fair. Again tonight, we will have ways for the audience to participate in the questioning. That's true for the live presentation. We haven't figured out how to do that yet when it's on tape. The folks in the audience and those at home can participate by sending their questions during the forum to G10events at ci.jacksonville.nc.us, or they can tweet them to @CO Jacksonville. I understand that stands for, well, that says G10 Events, but I was given another one, which was CO Jacksonville, City of Jacksonville. Those in attendance can write their questions on a card that we'll provide, and they could pass it along to a chamber representative. Then we have several here, and they will collect them and give them to me. We're not having a fishbowl round tonight, and I'll explain that later. So what I will try to do is take as many of those questions as I can that aren't duplicated in the other questions that have been prepared, and we'll submit those along with some of the others that we have. We're going to try to go for about we're going to try to keep the total program to about an hour, so we'll probably go about 45 to 50 minutes tonight with the questions, unless we get to the end earlier. For those people that are submitting questions, I will remind them that you don't know which candidates, or actually both candidates, will get the question. So please do not address them to an individual and keep them general in nature. One other audience guideline, we ask that everybody refrain from response during the program, and we'll just give everybody a hand at the end. Now, I talked about the fact that we've tweaked the format a little bit. We did that after what was sort of what we thought was a successful experiment with the City Council last year. And so there may be some people that are happy we don't have the fishbowl round. There may be some people that are despondent. But I suspect that it's a better way of doing things, because in this way, every candidate will have a chance to answer every question. And what we are going to provide is an opportunity for some rebuttal. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. And I will do my best to alternate turns at who gets it first, and we'll try to keep that straight during the night. Candidates will also have a chance for those two 30-second rebuttals. And what you would do in the course of when you realize that you would like to make a rebuttal, just hold up the cards that you've been given, and then I will call on you in the order of that we initially started that round of questioning. We have one other twist. We've used this one before. The candidates, you had a chance to submit a question for the program. Both of you did. So I'll be using those tonight. At the end, we'll have summations. That's also 1 minute for that round. Now let me go over the basic rules of engagements, and that is this. This is a forum and it's not a debate. We ask that you address the questions that are posed to you and not the other candidate. We also ask that you adhere to the time limits. When you see a yellow light, that signals that we have 15 seconds to go for that question. And when you see the red light and hear a buzzer, actually I don't think we're going to do the buzzer tonight, but if you see the red light, your time will be up. So what we ask that you do is complete your sentence and stop. We don't like to interrupt, but sometimes we have to. Again, for the first question, and the candidates have heard this from me earlier tonight, we're asking that each candidate state their name and provide us with a sentence or two of background information to introduce themselves, including where they reside in the county and their current occupation. So I will ask you if you have any questions, and if not, we'll proceed with the program. Okay, question one. And Ms. Brown, I'll ask you to answer this question first, and then we'll move on to Mr. Searles. Please tell us something about yourself where you reside, and your work experience, and explain why you are running for the position of Onslow County Clerk of Court.
First, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this event. I'd like to thank the members of the audience and the viewers at home for taking your time to get to know your candidates. I am Lisa Brown. My husband Harry and I reside here in Jacksonville. We have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. I've lived in Onslow County for 42 years. I'm currently employed and have been employed for the last 30 years with the Clerk of Superior Court's office. I've worked my way up from switchboard operator to courtroom clerk to my current position, assistant clerk and supervisor. I decided to run for clerk of court when I learned of Mrs. Gerganis' retirement because I'm concerned with the path that the clerk's office is going to take upon the loss of her 48 years of experience.
Mr. Searles.
Did I get Mrs. Brown's remaining 20 seconds? My name is Attorney Michael Searles. I've been an attorney here in Jacksonville, North Carolina since 2004. Jacksonville is what I consider my hometown. I moved here in 1977 on my dad's military orders. He's a retired Marine after 32 years, and my mom's a retired Onslow County school teacher. I graduated from the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics and got my degree afterwards from Coastal Carolina Community College. Afterwards, I went into the military myself, and after I was honorably discharged, I did finish out my bachelor's degree at UNCW and then worked retail management here in Jacksonville for several years before I went on to UNC Chapel Hill for my law degree. Since then, I've been serving the citizens of Onslow County for the last 10 years, and as well, when I learned upon Mrs. Gerganis' pending retirement, I felt that this was the right path after much prayer and consideration for me to continue serving the citizens of Onslow County as the elected clerk of court.
Thank you both. Okay, as I stated earlier, you both had a chance to submit a question. We're going to go to the first of those now. Mr. Searles, you'll have a chance to answer your own question here first off. What are the necessary qualifications for performing the duties of the elected clerk of court? And I'd like to add to that a little bit and just ask you, how do you think you stack up?
I think, as Mr. Harris pointed out, the role of the clerk of court in the state of North Carolina is very different than the role of the clerk of court in many other states, in that the clerk of court does more than just manage personnel that deal with the daily operations of the court. A very critical role of the clerk of court is that she works in a judicial capacity over various matters dealing with probate or guardianship or incompetency proceedings. And a lot of the things that the clerk of court's involved in is matters that I've dealt with in my private practice. I think it's important to have strong leadership, which I definitely feel I have those skills from my time serving in the military as well as managing retail businesses. So I think the strong management skills combined with a knowledge of how the courts operate and my perspective, my unique perspective as an end user of the court certainly adds to those qualifications along with my legal background.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, I'm going to repeat the question for you. What are the necessary qualifications for performing the duties of the elected clerk of court? And I added to that, how do you think you stack up to that?
Being the clerk of court is a very serious responsibility. You affect people's lives drastically. I believe that you need to be a strong leader. You need to care about people. Everyone's situation with the clerk's office is just as important as the next person's situation. I believe that my 30 years of experience in the clerk's office, serving the citizens face-to-face, day-to-day, has given me the ability to understand the needs of the people of the county. I've worked side by side with the judges, with the prosecutors, with the defense attorneys. I know the court procedures. I know the policies. I know how to interpret the North Carolina general statutes. I've been applying the laws to the duties of the Clerk of Superior Court's office for 30 years. I believe that I have the ability to lead you in a fair and with strong leadership and integrity and fairness to everyone involved.
Okay, Mr. Searles, would you like me to repeat the question? I'm sorry. Let me go to Ms. Brown for this question. This is one that you submitted, so you should be familiar with it. What, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge facing the clerk's office today, and how do you propose to address this challenge?
One of the biggest challenges we're facing today is the constant turnover in staff. Over the last couple of years, we've lost several of our most experienced assistant and deputy clerks. And with that being the case, I believe it makes it more important than ever that the elected clerk be someone with experience. You're not going to have the opportunity that some of the past clerks have had, that the staff can lead you and help pull you through. You're going to have to know the procedures. You're going to have to know the policies. I believe that as clerk of court, I would be able to lead the citizens, serve the citizens based on my skills and my abilities that I've obtained over the last 30 years. I will work on making a work environment that people are excited about working in hopes that they'll continue to stay with us longer so that they can be trained and give the citizens the knowledgeable and educated service that they deserve.
Okay, now we'll get back in order here, Mr. Searles. The question is, what, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge facing the clerk's office today, and how do you propose to address the challenge?
Well, I think because the court system is funded through the Administrative Office of the Courts in Raleigh, they're under the same budget constraints as any other governmental agency funded through the state of North Carolina. And I think that has certainly posed a problem because of the continuing growth of the population in Onslow County. There has definitely been I would say an explosion of cases that are filed and processed through our Onslow County courts. And with the budget constraints that the clerk of court is faced with, it makes it difficult to meet the demands of just the volume of cases that come through our courts. So I think it's important, as Mrs. Brown stated, that our clerks are well trained, that we do try to retain them so that we can continue to efficiently serve the citizens of Onslow County. I think we need to find ways to which we can improve upon the efficiency with the human resources that we have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to the next question, and Mr. Searles, you'll be answering this one first. What do you see? We had earlier in the program, we had a whole list of responsibilities that the clerk's office has. What we would like to ask you now is, what do you see as the most important of those responsibilities for the clerk?
Well, I think every division that the clerk of court is responsible for is equally important, whether it's individuals having to come to court for child support matters, or if they're there for a custody case, or if they're coming there for a probate of their will, or having a family member declared incompetent. So I think they're all equally important, but I think what probably is becoming more of an important role for the clerk of court is the judicial capacity that the clerk operates in. Probate of wills is a matter of original jurisdiction for the clerk of court to hear contested matters in that regard. And I think with the growing complexities in our laws, it helps that the clerk of court, if the clerk of court isn't an attorney, has the ability to be able to quickly analyze what the legal issues are and apply the law, research the law. So working in a judicial capacity, I think it's not that it's a necessity, but I think it's an added value to be an attorney.
Ms. Brown, what do you see as the most important responsibility of the clerk of court?
I think, as Mr. Searles said, every responsibility is equally as important. What may seem trivial to me, to the next person, may seem like the end of the world. I think that it's important that the clerk of court be able to offer strong leadership and make sure that the citizens of Onslow County are given the educated and knowledgeable service that they desire, or that they're required to get. There are many resources available to the clerk of court, so having a law degree is not required. It's not necessary. I've been applying the laws to the clerk of court's duties for the last 30 years. The Administrative Office of the Courts provides the clerk's office with legal counsel that are specifically trained in every aspect that the clerk will deal with. So you have legal counsel that you can turn to if you have a question or you need help before you make the decision that you're about to make.
Thank you. Okay, we have a 30-second rebuttal from Mr. Searles.
Burn one of my 2 timeouts.
There you go.
Mrs. Brown is correct. The position of the clerk of court does not necessitate that you have a law degree. The only thing I'm stating is that I believe it adds value to the role of the clerk of court for the citizens of the county if they have in place an attorney who doesn't necessarily always need to pick up the phone and call the Institute of Government when faced with a legal issue that they need to analyze and apply the law to. I think it just makes the system work more efficiently when you have an attorney in the role.
Okay, we have another rebuttal.
On that, I'll just say that I'm sure you've all heard the old saying, the fox guarding the hen house. If there's an attorney running the clerk's office, then where's the voice for the everyday citizen? You have attorneys and judges already running the courtrooms. The everyday citizen that doesn't have a law degree deserves to have a voice in the courthouse for them.
And we don't have a rule against it, so we have another 30-second rebuttal, and he has now used his last time out.
And I hate to burn my last time out, but I just want to clarify, I have been the voice of the local citizens of this county for the 10 years that I've been practicing in our local courts. And I've been the individual that's been advocating for those folks in my private practice, representing them in all issues in our courts, whether it be civil in nature or criminal in nature. So I certainly don't consider myself a fox in the hen house. I think, if anything, I've been a strong advocate of all our local citizens in our county.
Okay, here we go. If you could move your mic down just a bit, there you go. This question goes to you, Ms. Brown. What enforcement and collection authority does the clerk have with respect to fines and penalties assessed by the court? And what are your points of emphasis in this area of the clerk's responsibility?
The clerk's responsibilities are set out by statute. I believe it's important that we do everything that we can do to make sure that the citizens are paying their fines and their court costs. The legislature has set out penalties to assess against individuals that fail to pay their fines and their court costs, and it's up to the clerk's office to keep up on those individuals that haven't paid and to carry through with the procedures that are set out by statute and set out by policy for us to follow.
Okay, Mr. Searles?
Mrs. Brown's correct in that it's set out statutorily by our government in Raleigh, North Carolina, regarding what the fines and court costs are that are imposed on our citizens. As far as ensuring that they're being paid, I think that's where the judiciary comes into play in our legal system. I mean, it's kind of self-correcting. If a person goes to court and they are convicted of a traffic offense and they fail to pay that traffic offense, it would be reported to the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles, and that individual's driving privileges would be suspended until they complied with their failure to comply. Or if they failed to appear in court, the presiding judge would issue typically an order for their arrest if it was a criminal misdemeanor matter. And then we would count on our local law enforcement to pick up those individuals after the clerk's office informed the sheriff's department that there was an outstanding warrant for arrest on this individual. So typically people will pay when they go to jail.
Okay. And Mr. Searles, you'll have first crack at this question. Would you say the current budget is adequate for the operation of the clerk's office? And can you identify any areas for increased efficiencies and possible savings?
Well, I don't think our budget's adequate for the services that our county courts provide for the citizens. The administrative office of the courts obtains a small percentage of our overall state budget. And with the growing population in our state, I think we have to face the fact that there's going to be growing costs in administering our courts and servicing all the citizens that have to come to our courts on a daily basis for their legal needs. You're just going to have to deal with issues such as cost of living increases, and I think our county employees are probably not getting paid what they should be getting paid. But you have to work within the budget constraints that you have. So as far as trying to work more efficiently, you try to find ways to where you can make the system work better whether we adopt electronic filings like in Wake County, or just find ways to which we can process individuals more efficiently and faster as they come into our courts.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat that question again. Would you say the current budget is adequate for operation of the clerk's office? And can you identify any areas for increased efficiencies and possible savings? Ms. Brown.
The budget is most definitely not adequate. Our technology is so far behind. We still have a computer system that was incorporated in 1983. There are ways that we could possibly increase efficiency. I believe some of our departments may be overstaffed, while some of our departments may be understaffed. So I would take a look at the layout and the makeup of our departments and see if maybe some of the responsibilities on some of the departments could be switched and shared between other departments. Also, the technology that we do have, although it's antiquated, there's some of it that I don't think we're using to the best of our ability in order to make the records more accessible to the public. And also the layout of our office, maybe some of the divisions that we have in certain locations of the building could better serve the people if they were located someplace else.
Okay. The first question, you'll get the first crack at this one, Ms. Brown. What is your assessment of the level of customer service provided by the clerk's office, including what it does well and what improvements could be made?
I think that we have one of the best clerk's offices in the state, although I agree there's always room for improvement. Quality customer service will be one of my top priorities. I believe that it's very important that the clerks are educated so that they understand the difference in giving legal advice and giving legal information. Our clerks work hard. They're under a lot of stress. We do have a large caseload. And like I said before, we've lost a lot of our experienced clerks, so we have inexperienced clerks trying to carry the load for someone that, has left that's been there for 20 years. So I think it's important to just try to make sure that the employees know that they're appreciated and that their services are valued, and that in return is going to show to the public in their service, in their customer service.
Thank you. Mr. Searles, I'm going to repeat the question for you. What is your assessment of the level of customer service provided by the clerk's office, including what it does well and what improvements could be made?
Well, I definitely agree that in my 10 years of practicing in the local courts here, our clerks do an excellent job of assisting the public and assisting attorneys representing the public. And under those kind of stressful conditions, like Mrs. Brown has talked about, it is difficult for the clerks to try to maintain, not that they don't, but to try to continue to maintain positive attitude and outlook in dealing with an overwhelming volume of work that they have to deal with. I think working on just dealing with things efficiently would assist the clerks, but I think more importantly, from working retail management in my time in the military, you learned to work sometimes from the top down. If the clerk can step in, the elected clerk of court can step in any way alleviate the workload that the deputy clerks and assistant clerks have to do, that's certainly something they can do, such as, for example, handling uncontested divorces, which is typically handled by our district court judges.
We have a rebuttal from Ms. Brown.
I'd just like to add to Mr. Searles' comment about the elected clerk stepping in to help. That's where my 30 years of experience is going to outweigh his law degree. I have been a supervisor that has been hands-on. If something needs to be filed, I'll file it. If the switchboard needs to be operated, I'll operate it. Anything and everything that needs to be done in the clerk's office, I've never been above myself to jump in and help.
Okay. Mr. Searles, you'll get first crack at this reader-submitted, not reader-submitted, but audience-submitted question. I'm used to readers. But there is a current policy that no one litigant can file more than 10 new lawsuits in one day. Some landlords, for example, may prefer to file more than that. Would you change that policy?
And I think the issue is that if a landlord is having problems with multiple tenants that are failing to pay their rent and they're trying to have them evicted, that to have a policy in place that puts a cap on the number of pleadings they can file in a day certainly slows down their ability for them to conduct their business and get due process in removing individuals that are failing to pay their rent. It's not that we're depriving that tenant from their ability to be heard in the courts, but I think we're depriving the landlord from their ability to run their business, which they're a tax-paying citizen that helps fund our courts. I think if such a policy is in place, it's probably just due to the overwhelming caseload and workload that the clerks have to deal with. And I think if we can find more efficient ways to deal with that, we don't have to hamper the citizen who is trying to get something important accomplished through the courts.
Okay, Ms. Brown, I'm going to repeat that question. There is a current policy that no one litigant can file more than 10 new lawsuits in one day. Some landlords, for instance, may prefer to file more. Would you change that policy?
I would not like to make a decision on if I change a policy or not until I was able to take a look at the policy, take a look at the effect, what all the clerk has to do when the lawsuit's filed, see how it affects the clerk's office in general. And of course, I would want to help the business, help the citizens, so I would be willing to take a look at maybe another area in that department that could pitch in and help if the problem is the caseload and the clerk not being able to process the cases in a timely manner. I do everything in my power to make it so that the clerk's not overburdened and the business owner is satisfied with the service that he's getting from our office.
Okay. Ms. Brown, you'll get the first crack at this question. Technology has impacted practically every area of our life. How has it and how should it continue to affect how the Clerk of Court's office offers services to county residents?
The Clerk of Court's technology is very antiquated. We definitely need help in our technology department. I think it needs to be, our records need to be more accessible to the public. Being a military town, we deal with a lot of citizens that are here today and gone tomorrow. They get back home, they need documents from our office. We're not able to provide that to them in a timely manner. They have to send in a written request along with their payment. Takes 2 or 3 days for the mail to get to us. We have to process it, send it back to them, 2 or 3 more days to get to it. If we had the ability to email or fax or maybe even online access to the records would be a great help to the citizens, and that would be something that I would do everything that I could, to try to make those things happen.
Mr. Searles, I'm going to repeat the question for you. Technology has impacted all areas of life. How has it and how should it continue to affect how the Clerk of Court's office offers services to county residents?
I think it goes back to the issue about our courts are not adequately funded by our state government because the technology does need to be updated. One thing I do appreciate is the ability that you can go online to the Onslow County Register of Deeds office and you can get plot maps, deeds, and things of that nature that are electronically filed online so it's accessible to the citizens from home. If there's a means by which we can do the same with our other records that are public records within our district and superior courts, that would certainly ease the burden on the clerks as far as people having to come to the courts and seek copies of filings if they have immediate access to them online. Because we do need to upgrade our technology in the courts. Some of the computers that are available to the public as far as public access terminals don't even utilize Windows. I don't know how many people still remember DOS, but it's a little scary.
Mr. Searles, you'll get the first crack at this question. And it's actually a topic that we've sort of touched on already, but we'll hit it again directly this time. One of the most important relationships that the clerk's office has is with the legal community. How can the clerk ensure that the office maintains a professional working relationship with attorneys and others who are involved in the practice of law?
I think the significance there is that attorneys that are appearing in court are representing frequently multiple clients. And whereas the citizen who appears in court is the one citizen, the attorney that appears might be representing multiple citizens that day in court. So the individual citizen is just as important as the attorney, and I want to make that very clear. It's the citizens that I represent in my private practice. I think we need to make sure we maintain a good working relationship between the clerks and the attorneys, and I feel like that's something that I've always had in my 10 years of practice. I have the greatest utmost respect for Mrs. Brown and for Mrs. Shippert, and I've worked with them for the past decade. I know they have a very, very hard job, and I think as long as the attorneys show proper respect to the clerks, and the clerks have proper respect for the attorneys, and they understand we all are working together to try to efficiently process cases, that's important.
Okay. Mrs. Brown, I'll repeat the question. One of the most important relationships that the clerk's office has with the legal community. How can the clerk ensure that the office maintains a professional working relationship with attorneys and others involved in the practice of law?
I believe our clerk's office, our clerks do have a great relationship with the legal community. As Mr. Searle said, though, the attorneys, of course, need to show respect to the clerks need to show respect to the attorneys. The regular, everyday citizen that doesn't have an attorney, they are just as important as the attorney. We have certain rules in place, certain policies that clients with attorneys have certain privileges that clients without attorneys don't have. So we do work hard to try to maintain a good relationship with the legal community, and I would encourage my staff, if I was the elected clerk, to continue to maintain that relationship with the legal community.
Okay, thank you both. Ms. Brown, you'll have first crack at this one. If you had controlling of funding for the courts, what would you do differently to improve the court system?
I would upgrade the technology. And I would also, the clerk's office, we have limited space. If there was a way that I could provide more office space and more storage space, those would be one of my top priorities.
Mr. Searles?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure, I apologize. If you had control of funding for the courts, what would you do differently to improve the court system?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on how much of the funding I have access to. I think there's so much you can improve in the court system, but obviously everything costs money. I think increasing the pay of our clerks, who probably haven't had a pay raise in a long time, I think that's important because they do a very demanding, stressful job. And they're there to serve the citizens, to try to get them efficiently processed, typically in a situation that a citizen's very stressed out about because they're having to go to court. Court's not typically a fun place. But I think updating the technology so that we can maybe have access to more court files online will improve efficiency. And just primarily ensuring that we're using our money wisely. Everybody has to work within a budget, whether it's a family at home or our courts. So we have to maximize the money that we obviously have. And I think looking at ways we can do that is very important.
Okay, you're next up for this question. What ideas do you have for educating the public about how to use the services of the clerk's office?
Well, you can try to educate the public as much as possible when they come to court, but that's not necessarily always the most efficient way to do it. I really like what the clerk of court in Wake County has instituted, where she has online the ability for people to access information regarding court dates or what to do when they come to court, if they're having to deal with a traffic ticket or something of that nature, trying to streamline the process. I mean, our government has tried to institute ways to help by allowing e-pay online, where people, if they get an infraction ticket, can just pay their ticket online rather than having to come to the courts and pay it at the court window. So these are definitely ways that we can make more efficient use of our courts and maximize the budget, the limited budget that we have.
Okay, I'll repeat the question. for Ms. Brown. What ideas do you have for educating the public about how to use the services of the clerk's office?
I've learned in my campaign that a majority of the public really does not have any idea what the clerk's office does or what the clerk's office offers to you. You can put anything you want to put on the computer, and majority of the public's not going to read it. With our e-pay system that Mr. Searles refers to, it plainly tells you on there if you pay your ticket through that system, you're pleading guilty to what you're charged with. Well, you'd be surprised at how many people go through that process, pay their ticket, and then call us because they're upset that they've been convicted and their insurance rates are hiked. It's because they don't read the computer. So my ideas of educating the public, I would continue to go out into the public. I would encourage my staff to go out into the public to participate in community events and just offer all the information that we can offer personally face-to-face to the citizens about the clerk's office and what we offer to you.
Thank you. And we have actually gone through our questions, so we're down to the last one. And I will ask Ms. Brown to start. The clerk maintains many records, most of which are legally required to be available to the public. Yet there have been privacy issues that also have been raised in recent years. How could the clerk balance public access and the need for privacy that individuals have?
You have to make sure that your staff is educated on the privacy laws. You can't have clerks not being clear on what's public access and what's not. So one of my main goals would be to make sure that every member of my staff understands the public and the private policies that are in place.
Mr. Searles, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. I think it is important that you educate your employees so they know what's accessible to the public and what is not. And there's certainly a check and balance system in place if you're going to be posting information online that's accessible to the public. If criminal records from district court or superior court are going to be accessible to the public, and they are now. I mean, reporters can go down to our magistrates and see what arrest warrants have been issued from the night prior. I think it's important that you redact any information in there that's protected by law as far as being private information, whether it be Social Security numbers, telephone numbers of individuals that are in police reports, that are in files with the courts. But, you know, judges also can place records under seal if they don't want them to be accessible to the public, such as juvenile records. So I think we definitely have a system in place to address that already.
Okay. Well, we're down to the last, to the summations, and Mr. Searles, you'll get first shot at that. Again, 1 minute.
Okay. You know, it's important to educate the public as to what the multifaceted role of the clerk of court is. So I do appreciate the ability to come before the forum today and the citizens of Onslow County so that they can be better informed about what the clerk of court does. And I'd hope they would understand that it is a very complex job, and it deals a lot with our laws in our system, and the laws are not getting any less complex. I think it's important to know that currently approximately 20% of our clerks of court in North Carolina are licensed attorneys, and it's a growing trend. I think that's significant because it does add value to the citizens of our county that they have an individual with a law degree who can help analyze legal issues on the spot and help make sure the courts run efficiently for them. Lastly, please get out and vote May 6th. It's important. Our men and women in uniform fought to uphold our Constitution and defend it. And I think people need to make sure they exercise their constitutional right to vote.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, your summation.
My heart is with the citizens of Onslow County and its court system. I've worked for 30 years serving the citizens of Onslow County face-to-face through the duties of the clerk of court's office. I've worked side by side with the judges, the prosecutors, and the defense attorneys. I know the court procedures, I know the court policies, I know how to read and interpret a North Carolina general statute. I care about the citizens of Onslow County. I ask you for your help, I ask you for your prayers, and I ask you for your vote for me, Lisa Brown, for Clerk of Court on May the 6th. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you both for being so attentive to both the questions and the time. table that we were under. I was glad that we were able to make it through.
And I'm Lorette Ligon. I'm the president of the Jacksonville Onslow Chamber of Commerce. And Mrs. Brown, Mr. Searles, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your willingness to serve our community. I'm very honored to know you. The Chamber of Commerce is a membership organization, and we could not accomplish what we do without our volunteers and our members. So I want to thank Duke Energy, our corporate sponsor, our media sponsor, the Daily News, and our partners, the City of Jacksonville and the City of Jacksonville Media Services. Thank you to Cindy Edwards, the owner of By His Design and the chair of the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee. Chamber member Jason Harris, an attorney at law with Welch and Harris, and our moderator, Mr. Elliott Potter, who is the publisher and executive editor of the Daily News and past chair of the Chamber Board. I want to say a special thank you also to our Forum Onslow coordinator, the Chamber's operations director, Janet Bowen, our very astute timekeeper over there, membership manager, Christina Fernandez, and staff members, Elena Sosa, Vice President Millionaire Williams, for their assistance with today's event. Now, this is one of 4 forums that the Chamber will be presenting. Our next one, we will meet the candidates for Onslow County Sheriff, Ed Brown and Hans Miller. We're also going to present a Meet the Candidates forum for Onslow County Board of Education candidates, Joel Churchwell, Brock Ridge, Marianne Sharp, and Bob Williams. And then our last Meet the Candidates forum will be for the House of Representatives, District 14 candidates, George Cleveland and Bobby Mills, and District 15 candidates, Jim Morton and Philip Shepard. And as our candidates here said, remember your votes do count. One-stop voting begins April 24th, runs through May 3rd, and Election Day is May 6th. This concludes our forum. Thank you.